Oh yeah, here we go. Oh, there's an audience. Never trust. Never date a man who wants to start a family right away. Like tonight. Never be at a funeral and say, "You're next." Ting, 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 ting. Never trust. Never trust a man. Never trust a man. Never trust a man who repeats himself. I was in a show called The Boys Down the Hall, Hee-Haw. No, Kids in the Hall. That was the other one.
Oh, yeah.
And we were a bunch of dumb fucks, aren't we? We did 6 seasons of television in 37 years. I don't smell money. I drive a Mazda 6, sir. And I don't mean that to boast. So if you don't know the Kids in the Hall, it doesn't matter. If you don't know me, it doesn't matter. Oh, thanks, okay. Because spoiler alert, this show is about you. Shared humanity. The usual comedy fare. Matter grew and eroded. How motors worked. The death of the veranda. The one thing the aliens didn't understand that night that they came down is why are there laugh tracks on TV? It didn't compute. It made their gadgets go gaga. The other thing they didn't understand that night and day as they came down is why are there so many lonely people? Why don't they simply pair up? You know, a person like at a dance, arms folded, saying, no, you guys go dance. I like standing here alone. You go have, a nice dance. Go have marriage and children and warm backs to cuddle. I like standing alone. Aliens said they could understand one lonely person, but not an army of lonely people buying a rotisserie chicken on Saturday night. Not an army of people brushing their hair for no one. Sleeping alone in a 10-year-old t-shirt, trying to stay practiced in love with a bird or a dog or a ferret, or simply by remembering. And then they finally said, we have to leave because Earth's atmosphere is so lonely. They said, don't tell anyone we were here. I said, who do I have to tell? And after they left, I solved the mystery. The laugh track is for me. The laugh track is for us. The laugh track is to remind us we are not alone. Not in this universe and not in this city. All we have to do is look across and see each other because we are all we have. All you have to look over and say, hey brother, need some ginger ale? And we don't have to pair up or have families. We just have to look over and see each other. If you're live tweeting tonight's show, and I hope you are, please say that we are lonely, but we are not alone. We are sharing air. We are breathing the same air as our ancestors. All the people we have met and all the people we haven't met, they are still there in the air. All the people we have loved and lost are there in the air. All the people, all the pets. And if you ever miss them, just breathe. It was back in the sad, almost sweet days of COVID, remember? We wiped down our groceries, and then we washed the cloth we wiped down the groceries with. We wore character masks as if to say, this virus isn't gonna steal my individuality. Yeah, just fucking wait. And of course, at 7 every night, we would go outside with a pot and a spoon. With our neighbors silently united in the clang, and we would beat it for up to 5 minutes a night. I am doing something for the first responders. I am banging a pot. with a spoon for some reason. I don't know why. It must have started in Europe, but here I am. And we live very near a hospital. And there was those nights when the ambulance drivers would flash their lights at us. And some nights they even got out and they turned and saluted us. It was like the Beatles loving their fans. It was amazing. And perhaps more personally, if your friend tells you that they are doing a theater workshop on Zoom, have your excuses ready. And I came up with a doozy. One night we were watching the theater workshop that started. My laptop was on my lap, for which it is named. And the Zoom didn't really even Zoom. It just sort of puttered along. All these actors saying words like a One Yellow Rabbit show. Way too many words. And then, of course, I fell asleep. And I woke up some hours later. Now, I have never actually read the Kafka book, where a man wakes up to find he's turned into a giant cockroach. But I thought of it then, because I was one. A man unable to move my arms or limbs. I was stuck in a mental cocoon. I tried licking my way out, but nothing worked. I didn't know who or what I was. Was I even Bruce Ian McCulloch? Was I 18 years old at the bad end of a bar fight? Had I died having a heart attack pitching a workplace comedy to the CBC? One thought that comforted me is that I was probably traveling through the universe and I would soon be reunited with my failed jokes. And that gave me so much comfort. And then I had another thought, which is, I don't think I'm ever going to make another visa payment. Which I really loved. And so it actually took me 6 hours to wake up my sleeping wife. And we put it together quickly that I had had a stroke. And I wondered, would one half of my face be enough to do a monologue in the upcoming Kith reboot? I was very proud of myself being an A-type that I was already writing a piece called The Stroke Folk. It's a family where everybody's had strokes and they don't mind. And my mind wandered back into when I lived in LA and the doctor asked me about my end-of-life protocols. And I had said, if I die, my wife can't remarry for 2 weeks. And he laughed and wrote it down. Wasn't so fucking funny now, was it? She had the hospital on the phone and they were, the stroke experts, I guess, were all gathered around and they asked me to think of an object and see if I could say it out loud. And of course I said, a collapsing orange. They thought my brain was broken. See, I'm a creative guy. I'm not just going to say bed or chair. I thought a collapsing orange was a very creative image, but perhaps not. They thought I was done for. Now, we sleep on the 3rd floor of the house. And, when you buy a house, you don't tend to ask the real estate agent, can a gurney fit up those stairs? Well, it turns out it can't. So when the ambulance drivers came up, the biggest, burliest one had to piggyback me down my own stairs. My wobbly stairs and my feet knocked off every fucking framed picture of my family that I have on the walls for some reason. He carried me outside, and it was now 7 a.m. And all my pot-banging neighbors were gathered around, potless, watching as this weird little man was being carried out. And I didn't perhaps say that I was wearing my wife's housecoat that she had put on me. And she plopped on her puffy slippers on my feet as well. So they watched as this little weird man was carried out in invalid drag. I looked at the guy in the kilt and I kind of started to understand him a little bit more. And this part was funny, and even then I knew it. As they put me on the stretcher and tried to put me in the ambulance, it wouldn't go. It just wouldn't click into place. And they just kept banging my head over and over And over again. Collapsing orange. Collapsing orange. Collapse. And I thought, oh my God, this is hilarious. This is all I've ever wanted. I don't want to die surrounded by my loved ones, listening to Sinead O'Connor music. I want to die in the middle of a big fucking juicy laugh. And not a word of a lie, they had to call a second ambulance. He could have just carried me to the hospital. It's like 400 feet away. When I got there was no room for me at the inn, so I sat masked and alone in the waiting room, and not a word of a lie as I came, as one of the attendants turned to his friend and said, "Is that a kid in the hall?" In the hall. Of course, they never recognize you when you're getting an award or when you're being fitted for a fine suit of clothing. It's always when you're drunk in KFC. Fucking 1 minute before it closes. "Hey, I'm one of the Daves you know." "Yeah, well, fuck off, Dave. Want a piece of chicken in your fucking head, David?" "I'm crushing your head." "Yeah, I'm throwing chicken at your fucking chest, Dave." So he came up to me, and the guy said, "I hate to do this. Can I have an autograph?" And I just stared at him. My limbs and my words would not work. He just thought I was an asshole. Apparently a few people have that story. And then I sat there, and the doctors started assessing me there, and they were trying to get me to talk, and all I could say was, "Collapse, orange, broken, orange." And I realized that I was admitting a narrative that Frank Zappa could not comprehend. And then they asked me weird questions, like if I'd ingested anything. And it turns out that I had not had a stroke. Yeah, I guess I just had a cute little edible. And my mind wandered back to, well, it was a theater workshop on Zoom after all. And folks, I don't like edibles. I don't know much about them. Some nights, occasionally, I have one because they're not 4 giant gins. And I later realized that the name of this edible was not, in fact, like warm bath or angel's kiss. It was train wreck. And I, in fact, was one. You know, that package should come with a warning. If you take this edible, not 1 but 2 ambulances will need to be called. And as I later looked at the package, I realized it wasn't an edible at all. Come farther with me. It was a big cartridge for a vape pen. It was gigantic, like 10 high chews put together. I didn't know what to do. And I think that package should come with a warning. And I don't know much about edibles. Perhaps one of the, the rule of thumb is don't take 2,000 times the recommended dose. So I sat there and they wouldn't let me leave until I could walk or talk. Yeah, you should have thought about that autograph, you little prick. And I sat there, and the phone that my wife had put in her pink robe started blowing up. Yeah, it was my writer friend, and then her girlfriend. They were very upset that I hadn't said anything about Diane's theater workshop on Zoom. And I was so happy to have the best excuse of my life. Me in hospital. Me love workshop. It a hit. And then, to pass the time, I started imagining a collapsing orange. Imagine a collapsed orange, and I thought if I could send all my love and all my hope to it, that I could make it round. I could make it whole. And then I thought, isn't that what we've all been doing for so long? Also, I was really still really high. And I thought to myself, if I survive this, I'm gonna write a monologue called The Collapsing Orange. And hopefully do it in a city as cool as Vancouver.
Oh, yeah.
6. Don't boast about your wealth, Bruce. And she took us the 400 feet to our house. But it turns out it was at the exact time that my neighbors had gathered on their front steps, pots in hand, my children too, and they watched as the Mazda 5 pulled up and the door slid open, and there he was, their weird little neighbor. And the guy in the kilt said, "So you made it, Brewster." I didn't know him, he already had a nickname for me. And I looked at him, and everything froze, because I looked over his shoulder, and inside his house there was 3 framed words. You know what they were. Live, love, laugh. And I thought, fuck, those people are right. I do want to live. I do want to love. I do want to laugh. I thought, all of this is so beautiful. Even the day that you swallow a golf ball-sized piece of dope and almost die is a miracle. And I looked at my children who were banging pots but stopped. There was my daughter who had just low-grade depression. Here was my son who was in the street and not in a gang. And then I looked out, and all the neighbors, for some reason, they turned and they saluted me. Little man, reluctant neighbor, train wreck survivor. And I looked at my outstretched feet, and I thought, hashtag blessed. Take a picture.